Part 3 covers what makes a good outreach note. How do we know it's good and actually make a good one? And then how can we actually test our results and see what we need to improve if our campaign doesn't hit it out of the park at the beginning? So in Mylance here, we've actually given you an outreach note generator. And so we ask you very specific prompts about the type of customer you help, how you add value, a call to action, an accomplishment to back this up, and the customer pain. And we ask these very intentionally because these are the key components of what makes a really good outreach note. Now, if you want to spend a little bit of time with this, we actually gave you, if you go to the helpful resources section, we gave you this resource called the Outreach Note Construction Guide. So I'm going to open that up, and here you can see, and it's really the same prompts, but we give some examples and we give you a space to really work on this draft. So the first thing is nailing down your customer. You should already have done this with our team, assuming you're a customer with us. Then you're going to really talk about what is that pain? And this pain, we get this question sometimes, how do I know? And you should really know this from your experience working with these companies. So assuming your ICP, your ideal customer, is the type of customer that you've already worked with, ideally for many years, you know their pains. And sure, you can go talk to decision makers and leaders at these companies. You can validate their pain. You can ask all those curious questions to really hone it in, but you should have a pretty good idea. So I did this from a standpoint of I'm an operations expert that uses data to help decision makers know what's going on in their business. So their pain is that they don't have trustworthy, reliable data that they can use to understand what's going on in their business and make informed strategic decisions. So, and then the next question is, how do I uniquely help them? And uniquely is so key to this sentence. This is what makes you stand out. What makes you in the top 1% of what you do. This should be one sentence of what I do and why I'm different. So in this case, I'm an operations expert that transforms companies into well-oiled machines with automated KPI dashboards for each function and efficiency gains through automation. Then we need to back that up. Like, what legitimizes us? It's one thing to say something, and it's another thing to really have done it. So in this case, this person, again, this is a dummy person, but led the launch of the Uber Freight app and built a custom live updating dashboard, giving the team insights that reduce churn by 60% over the next 12 months, which is obviously huge for the business. So you can use these components. Here's this space for you to make a draft. Of course, if you're going to use this, you just go ahead and go to File and make a copy so you can use your own. And then we have a little section here that basically helps you put this into an outreach note yourself. But what you can actually do is you can take this information and you can plug it into our outreach note guide that is in your lead section right there. So you can essentially fill this in with, your Calendly and LinkedIn, of course, but type of customer you help, and then the how you add value and all those kinds of things. Click Save Changes and then see my note. And actually the AI might take a second or two, and then it will publish your note with that information. And we have this key at the beginning here of that we expect this to be 85% of the way there. This is not a finished product. So make sure that you do spend the time to finish this and make sure, because AI is not good enough yet, make sure it's really in your voice and is really going to speak to your customer. So that's part one of what makes a good outreach note. And if I have to pick one thing that makes an amazing outreach note, is that we really hit on the customer's pain and we hit on it well. It could be as simple as, hey, are you a founder that is so overwhelmed and you're doing marketing all by yourself, so you have no time to really invest in marketing, right? If I'm a founder that is in this situation, that message is going to resonate really strongly with me. I'm going to feel like you get it, and I'm going to be much more likely to answer your note. So make sure that you really nail that customer pain. Now, the next question is, how do I know if this is working? How do I know if I need to pivot? So what we generally recommend is set up this campaign, whether you're doing it, we covered in part 2, whether you're doing it manually, whether you're using Expandy or another outreach tool, or you're using a VA, and let it run for a month. So you should be reaching out to probably 60 to 100 contacts in that month and track your results. So I put together a sample sheet here of what this could look like. So this is just using LinkedIn. It would obviously be different for email. For email, we would have open rates, right? We'd have open rates and then we'd have the message response rates. And it can be really, for LinkedIn, it can be really as simple as this of what's our connection request rate by every single week? What's our first message response rate, and on down the line. And we can see here what kind of the barrier to success is. So I can see if my connection request rate is only 11%, and I'm just using sample data here. But if I can see that it's only 11% here, that's low, right? That means I'm losing 89% of contacts just by connecting with them. So clearly I have to look at that message, that initial message that I have in my Expandy campaign when I have my steps here. If I'm using Expandy, this message clearly isn't working if I'm getting 11%. If I'm getting 35%, then I think it's pretty good. Now, and we can look on down the line. So what I would do is I would let this run for 4 weeks and keep track, right? So you could even have, this is, maybe this is version 1, right? Or campaign 1, right? And then what you could do is when you switch to campaign 2, when you make a change, you can track it here, and you can even keep in notes. Maybe this is the notes section here of, what changed, right? So changed connection request to whatever it is, right? And then you could keep going with the week's tracking, and you could keep adding the results, and you can see how you're doing, right? So the key here is don't test multiple variables at one time, right? So if you change the targeting of the list and the subject line and the copy, then it's very hard to figure out what's going on. The key here is with emails, the open rate is going to be about the subject line, and the copy is going to be more about the response rate. So LinkedIn's a little bit different, right? Because they don't necessarily have those two components. But what you can do essentially is track your metric, see how you're doing over time, and then see what kind of iterations you want to make. The key is don't get frustrated based on 1 week or 2 weeks of data. I know we all want results quickly, but it takes some time to prove this out. And you also might want a column here of contacts reached. Because if you've only reached, let's say, this is a number, right? If you've only reached 10 contacts, it's really not enough information. So maybe you reach 10 that week, and then 40 this week, and 50 this week, and 60 this week. And it's like, okay, now that we've reached 160 contacts, we can kind of see, okay, maybe we pull the overall connection request rate for this version 1, campaign 1, across 160 contacts. And that should be enough to give us an idea what looks out of whack, what we need to change, anything like that. So hopefully that makes sense. That gives you an idea of, 1, what makes a great outreach note and how the tools that we've given you to help you do that. 2, how you can actually track this and how you think about iterations, different versions, and knowing what good looks like and knowing when to make a change that's going to result in success for your business. So we'd love to report back, share in our Mylance Slack channel with success you're having, learnings you're having, struggles you're having. Share it all with us. It helps us to learn. It helps the other community members to learn as well. So look forward to seeing your comments in there and hope that this video was helpful.